Okay, so we're recording now, and so I first want to begin this um, uh, with telling the students that we're here talking with Darryl Walter, who is a marketing strategist with a global record of success in direct marketing, circulation, conference marketing, fundraising, branding, and all kinds of other things short of lassoing rodeo horses. He directs the development and implementation of all membership and marketing and customer acquisition activities now at the American Academy of Actuaries, but before that, he served as the Chief of Staff and Director of Membership Marketing and Conferences at the Wildlife Society, which is where I got to know Darryl. And he also played similar roles at the American Association for the Advancement of the Sciences at USA Today and also with the Special Olympics. Right? Did I leave anything else
Oh, that's
out?
pretty good.
Okay. And so Darryl is going to talk with us today about his perspectives on the roles of editors and people in editorial offices in supporting the kinds of activities that people doing membership, marketing, conferences, planning, all those other, let's call them auxiliary activities that happen outside the editorial office but need to draw on editors and the content that they're responsible for. So, Darryl, welcome to our class.
It's good to be here.
And thank you very much for being willing to spend the time doing this. So first, maybe you can tell the folks a little bit about yourself and your background from your point of view, and then I'll ask you some questions.
Sure. From my point of view, you kind of mentioned where I've been the last 20 years. Really, I got my start in direct marketing, and I look at myself first and foremost as a direct marketing professional. Direct marketing, when I started, it really was direct mail, some telemarketing, and then this new thing happened called the internet. So then there was email marketing and social marketing and partnership marketing has been around for a while as well. So really that is that's really what I grew up doing is direct marketing as a whole. I'm in a fairly new position here at the American Academy of Actuaries. Here I'm overseeing the membership marketing, membership retention, member benefits. I'm actually involved right now in focus groups and member and non-member surveys, really trying to get a feel for the member value. Prior to that, as you mentioned, I was at the Wildlife Society. I started there as Director of Membership Marketing and Conferences, and after a few years I became Chief of Staff. During that time, membership was increased by over 40% during my tenure. We hit record membership 3 consecutive years. And on the conference side, we really increased the number of the size of the conference as far as the as far as the scientific content, but also the networking opportunities. The number one thing that we do a post-conference survey year after year, and the number one reason why people attend conferences is networking. And, as people, get more used to webinars and things like that, that's the one thing that you lose in that, face-to-face, one-on-one situation at a conference is those networking opportunities. So hopefully, I'm a big proponent of conferences and actually people getting together and collaborating and meeting each other, mentoring, things like that.
Okay, that's great. And just to chime in, I really know that the the conferences and the way that you drew in the content and highlighted the scientific content in the conferences and in the marketing materials for the conferences, I think had a lot to do with the growth in that professional society, that there was a lot of not just sort of superficial come to the meeting in destination spot A, B, and C, but also here's the real content of the science that we're doing that helped to make those conferences successful. So one of the things I'd like to start asking you is about if you could describe how you, in your roles, have interacted with people in editorial offices and what it's taken for you to get the best from them.
Sure. Let me give you an example of when I was at AAAS, American Association of Advancement Science. Many of you probably know them as the publisher of the journal Science. Science is a weekly journal that comes out. When I was there, the membership marketing department, we would sit in on the weekly editorial meetings. And this was important because it alerted us to what was coming down the road. They would discuss, the next issue, but also, issues and papers that were close to being approved. So we had an idea of what was coming down. We had an editorial calendar that highlighted special issues, but oftentimes there was new hot research that would be published. And by sitting in on these editorial meetings, we were able to work with the editors, both the print and online editors, to discuss ways that we could assist in promoting the new hot research papers. So it would, there could be, it could be just an email to members alerting them about a specific paper, or it could be, much more where you get the press involved as well, get our media department involved, and they may do a press release around that. So we worked with the editorial offices on the promotion of these special issues as well. And, that was something that, it was critical.
So do you think that you're actually being present at the table in these editorial planning meetings made that easier?
Yes, and to be honest, we weren't at the table, but we were in the room, because there is that that church state wall, and but we needed to know what was coming down the road. And if we weren't in that meeting, we wouldn't know. And usually the way we did it is, someone, I was in a department of 5 or 6 people, and we would rotate as far as who would be going, who would go up to the meeting, and we would get an email back that day on, what was discussed as far as there was the news items, and then the research papers that were going to be, some of the bigger research papers that were coming out.
Okay, that's really useful to know. One of the things I also wanted to ask you was about what you value, what you have found valuable in the sort of the skills in people that you've collaborated with in editorial offices. What makes a good editorial collaborator? Is it someone who's creative, or is it someone that listens well, or is it someone who really knows the content really well and can direct you? What are the characteristics of the best kind of collaborator in an editorial office?
On the editorial office side, usually they need to know the content. I am not a content expert. I'm working with the American Academy of Actuaries right now. We really don't have it. We do have a member magazine, and I work with our communications department, but I am not a content expert or an expert on actuaries. So I need to go to them. I go to our policy department if I need to know those things. And one of the challenges that especially a lot of scientists have is being able to communicate your science. That's something that at AAAS, and even when I was at the Wildlife Society last year, that was the format of our plenary was communicating your science. That's a challenge that a lot of scientists have. And the joke is, can you tell your mother what you do in 2 minutes? And
yeah, the old elevator speech.
Right, it's the elevator speech, but also, can you tell your mother what you do, and will she be able to understand it? So content is key. When I was at AAAS and at the Wildlife Society, I really relied on those content experts. Example would be when I'm planning a meeting, I need to work with the subject experts to know what are going to be the hot talks for that conference. That helps in, which ones do we create a press release around, or even things as far as scheduling, because certain topics are going to be more popular, and I need to make sure that I'm in the larger rooms for that one.
So would you work with people in the editorial office, and would they then go and rely on planning boards or things like that? Or would they, in the situations you've worked with, do you really see those editorial staff as being the people who had to guide you?
On the meeting side, the editorial staff was not involved in that aspect, but we would bring them in, as far as even trying to get a whole integrated marketing around the conference. So we may put feature some of, like, say, the plenary. We may actually feature that in the member magazine prior to the conference coming up. Interviewing one of the speakers or a couple of the speakers at the plenary.
Yeah. So there was a two-way street.
Exactly.
In that sense. So I don't know if, that would then potentially roll over into things like blogging and podcasts and RSS feeds and things of that sort, if you have the right kind of institutional support for doing that.
Yes.
Okay. All right. One of the things also that I'm curious about now is, in terms of all the different ways that content can be pushed out, because this particular lecture, as I discussed with you earlier, is not about your traditional journal, even e-journal going out, but the ways that content is repurposed for all different kinds of reasons now. But in your opinion, what are the most powerful tools that are being used outside of the journal itself to distribute and promote content?
Sure.
And the organization?
First of all, everyone on the editorial side, on the marketing side, on the business side, everyone needs to be versatile today. For example, you should be knowledgeable and comfortable using social media. Most students they've grown up with social media. But also using the latest presentation software like Prezi. PowerPoint, it seems like it's so, 10 years ago. Being able to put together a podcast or a 3 or 4 minute clip on YouTube, those are things that are really important.
Yeah. Is there anything that you see as really being at the forefront of those technologies? The next new thing?
It's the technologies are important, but I think the communication skills are still the number one thing. Being able to communicate to your peers, to in front of an audience, in a journal or a magazine, writing.
Okay. So I want to just ask you a few questions now, with your wearing your chief of staff hat, because one of the things that I've found is that keeping people happy in any kind of an office is an important part to keeping things moving forward smoothly. So, based on your experience leading offices, what would you say are some of the most important things to keeping people working well together and collaborating well?
Transparency. I'm a big fan of transparency. Um, so that your publisher is communicating with your writers, um, and that they're working along with your on the marketing side with your business people. Um, and again, there's this whole tie-in with conferences and it really all falls under the whole umbrella for the society. Um, Example, I guess, with the member magazine is trying to really get the pulse of the membership in regards to what the members what interests them. So again, you may want to do a reader survey every few years and find out what are the hot issues that they want to read about. If you're managing peer-reviewed journals, having that relationship, that good relationship with, if you're using an outside publisher, a scientific publisher, one of the larger publishing houses, a lot of, having that communication with them and making sure that they are using the latest technology. There really aren't that many print journals left in college libraries now. It's really, everything's online.
So I think if I hear what you're saying, it's really having open communication, not just the transparency of who's doing what, but making sure that there actually is collaboration between those different offices and roles and responsibilities, not just knowing what's going on, but being active and collaborating.
Absolutely.
Okay. I mean, that's a really hard thing to get going in terms of when you're in bigger organizations, but it still is possible.
Right.
And important is what you're saying. So the last thing I really want to ask you about is, in your opinion now, for staff, and particularly editorial staff, what do you think are the most important things, or at least some important things, for people to keep up on in terms of ongoing training? And how important do you think that ongoing training and education is in professional development?
Continuing education is huge as far as your professional development. But as far as, where I see, publications going, digital platforms are vital. Being able to incorporate your digital platform so you can incorporate audio, visual, and the additional backup material. To me, that's really important.
Okay. So, do you have any final closing words of advice for the students?
Not words of advice. Not really.
Well, think about if you have a group of students who are up and coming in the publishing field, and you want them to think about the people they need to interact with outside the publication office. What would be the kind of golden rule for them?
You make those connections, or I guess really don't work in silos. A lot of organizations, especially the larger organizations, there's a lot of silo thinking. And, if you're at a larger organization, meet your colleagues throughout the building. So meet the people in finance, meet the people in marketing, or meet the IT folks, because eventually you're going to need to work with these people.
That's great. I agree with you completely, and that's a great closing closing bit of advice for us. Thank you very much for spending this time, and perhaps you'll come and visit a class in person later on in the semester.
All right.
That'd be great. Thanks so much,
All right.
Darryl.
Thank you, Philippa.
Toodaloo.
Bye.
Bye.